Fox Sports commentator Colin Cowherd had a lot to say when it comes to the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams. We're going to dive into that coming up here on Chicago Bears Now. My name is Harrison Graham. Before we do that, we are getting closer and closer to 111,000 subscribers. Triple ones. Help us get there. We got the latest news, rumors, my opinions, and analysis on this football team on a daily basis. Join the 110,000 strong by hitting that subscribe button. It's free. Okay, here's Colin Cowherd on the Bears. And you know what's crazy? He's kind of been a hater for a while. And listen, I don't necessarily blame him. The Bears are poorly run, yada, yada, yada. It's kind of easy to pick on the Bears. But he kind of had an epiphany this week. He's on board with the Bears as being a good coaching job, at least in this cycle. He's kind of done a complete 180 after initially being like, I don't know if this is a good job. Here's what Cowherd had to say. A lot to get to here. Kevin Warren said this was a really good job, and at first I thought, give me a break. But then I started thinking, well, there were questions about the Chargers, but they had the quarterback. All of a sudden, you're like, yeah, they got the coaching staff right. They already had the quarterback. And I thought that was a pretty interesting point because a really good quarterback and coach can overcome a lot of dysfunction in an organization. And I'll just say this, out of the openings right now, say what you want about the Bears. They're poorly run, ownership, yada, yada, yada. Is it really that close out of these three teams what the best opening is? The Saints have like negative $85 million in cap space. They're in cap hell, and that's for a team that's not that talented right now. The Jets have a nut as an owner in Woody Johnson. Like, he is a complete psycho. Aaron Rodgers is terrible. They have no answer at quarterback moving forward. I guess they could have a high draft pick. Maybe they find someone in the draft, but that's not a great situation. And then you got the Bears, who have Caleb Williams, over $80 million in cap space, 3 picks in the top 55, a lot of other young talent. Like, you could do a lot worse than the Bears right now. It is easily the best open job so far. Now, could a job open up that's more attractive for certain coaches? I think that's possible. You know, the Dallas Cowboys could open up, but you got to work for Jerry. Jacksonville? Cincinnati's the one where, yeah, the owner's cheap, but they do have Joe Burrow. I mean, that's pretty appealing. Are the Giants that appealing? Even with the high draft pick, if that opens up? The Raiders in that division with those coaches? I don't know. I mean, I'd say at worst the Bears would be second out of all these teams. Maybe Cincinnati's more attractive, but Cincinnati doesn't hold the Bears jock when it comes to like allure and history. And if you bring the Bears a Super Bowl, that's way more meaningful than the Cincinnati Bengals. Cowherd kind of gets to that here too when he compares the Bears and the Jags, because he kind of got into, okay, young quarterbacks, Caleb and Trevor. He doesn't think Cincinnati will open up, so he talked about these two. He said, I was thinking about these two jobs, talking about the Bears and Jags. In Chicago, if you win, you're a rock star. Chicago had Oprah, Jordan, Ditka, etc. Jacksonville, they're opening a Chipotle next Wednesday. Hey, I like Chipotle. It matters more in Chicago, he says. It's big. Yeah, the division is tough, but Trevor Lawrence or Caleb Williams? Kind of saying, Trevor's hurt a lot. He hasn't lived up to the billing. Caleb's overcome a lot in his early career here. We'll talk about what he said about Caleb in a minute. Listen, again, outside of maybe the Bengals, objectively, and I'm the Bears guy, I get it, but you're telling me those other jobs are more appealing than what the Bears potentially could have here with Caleb Williams and these young pieces and the cap space and the draft picks and all that stuff? I just don't see it. I don't see the Las Vegas Raiders being a better job. I just don't. So it's one of those situations where, yeah, it's not the best job of all time. It's open for a reason because there is dysfunction here. But if you get the right coach with this quarterback, you can overcome some of the chaos within the organization. What do you think? Will the Bears be the best open job this year? Type Y for yes, type in for no. If the Bengals don't open up, I say yes, because I think you got a lot in place here to work with. Still some holes on the roster. Trenches need to be better, but you got money to do that. You got draft picks to do that. So I think the Bears are actually in a decent spot. We've said it all year. If the Bears had a league average head coach, they'd probably be 7-5 or 8-4. You're in the playoff picture if you have that. Well, they had Matt Eberflus, and we all saw where that got us. So why the Bears job? Some of the things I've already mentioned. Well, you got a chance to develop Caleb, the number 1 pick, who's already shown a lot this year. There's young talent on the roster. DJ, Rome Odunze, Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones is a solid player. Swift, Roschon, Cole Kmet. Defensive side, Montez Sweat, Jalen Johnson. We'll see if Brisker can come back. Kyler Gordon. I still like Tyreek Stevenson as a talent. TJ Edwards. Like, you've got pieces to work with here. Jervon Dexter. Cap space, over $80 million. I think it's 6th most in the NFL right now. Premium draft capital, 3 picks in the top 50 to 55 in this upcoming draft. Don't forget that Carolina second-rounder Chicago has. That's a lot to like if you're a head coach candidate. Now, there are things not to like. Well, there's a reputation that your ownership is cheap. Will they open up the pocketbooks more for a coach this year? We'll see. The organizational structure is a bit abnormal. The GM and the coach don't report to the owner. They report to Kevin Warren. Do candidates like that? I would guess most would prefer to report to the owner. Poor recent history. You've picked bad coaches. The stigma of the organization kind of stinks. That's something to consider if you're a candidate. And you are in the hardest division in the NFL right now in the NFC North. And I think you will be for at least a few years, especially with Green Bay and Detroit, because they have guys under contract. Green Bay super young. We'll see what happens in Minnesota with their QB situation. But, there are reasons against the job. And listen, like I said, no open job's perfect. It's open for a reason. The Steelers didn't open up. You know why? Because they're well-run and they have a great coach. I mean, there's a reason why certain jobs open up all the time. But I still think this Bears job, compared to other ones that have or will open up, is a more appealing one. And that should give you a decent chance to get a better coach than the Jacksonville Jaguars. But obviously the Bears got to prove they can hire the right coach as well. More to come here, but I do want to tell you about our sponsor, Rocket Money. We appreciate Rocket Money for sponsoring this episode of Chicago Bears Now. It is a personal finance app that can help you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help you lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. With Rocket Money, I have full control over my subscriptions and a clear view of my expenses. I can see all of the subscriptions all on one screen. And if I see something I don't want, Rocket Money can help me cancel it with a few taps. I love how the dashboard of this app shows me this month's spending compared to last month, so I can clearly see my spending habits. Plus, they'll help me create a custom budget and keep me on track, which is very important, especially if you're like me and you've got a mortgage and a 19-month-old in daycare and all these other bills. I got to really stay on top of this stuff, and Rocket Money has helped me do that for the last year and a half. And they'll help you. RocketMoney.com/Bears now is the place to sign up. They have saved their users a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions alone, and members of Rocket Money can save up to $740 per year when using the app's full features. Think what you could do with over $700. You could go on a vacation, you could go on several nice dinners, you could start a college fund, whatever it is. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Go to rocketmoney.com/Bears now to get started today with Rocket Money. Okay, we've talked about more of the Bears side of this from Cowherd's standpoint. Well, a big reason for this, I think, is that Cowherd is a Caleb believer. And look, he's a USC guy, so, maybe there's a little bias there. But USC, by the way, even worse this year, just a mess. But here's what Cowherd had to say about Caleb. He said, he's having a really good season, but since the team is 4-8, everyone is freaking out. And we do this, we get paralyzed on records, but if you contextualize anything, take out the record for a second. If I said to you, going into the season for the Bears through 12 games, Caleb Williams has as many touchdown passes as Jalen Hurts, he's passing for more yards per game than Justin Herbert and Kyler Murray, has a higher completion percentage than Trevor Lawrence, in the toughest division in football, you'd be pretty impressed, right? He also just set the rookie all-time record for most passes thrown without an interception at 212 and counting. He's on his second play caller. The head coach just got fired. He has more 100-plus passer rating games than Patrick Mahomes with this mess of a franchise hovering around him. And I've been pretty strong in defending Caleb this year, even when he was going through a rough patch. It's like, guys, this coaching situation's a mess. Waldron's a train wreck. Eberflus is awful. And, they should have kept Justin. When you read all that, just putting it into words, more 100 passer rating games than Mahomes, more yards per game than Herbert and Kyler Murray. Like, again, I'm not sitting here acting like Caleb Williams has had the greatest rookie season of all time. But when you factor in the chaos that this team has undergone, the coaching, the dysfunction, the players and coaches seemingly going back and forth, and how Caleb has handled it publicly in the media, I'm pretty impressed. Like, and the fact that he's found a way to weather this all and improve as the season has gone on, that gives me a lot of hope moving forward, especially if you get the right coach, which Cowherd is saying, I think this job's pretty good, and I agree with them. And he also added this, they're losing close to NFC North teams, the 3 best teams in the NFC right now, by the way. Lost by a combined 7 points. Field goal blocked against the Packers, otherwise you win that one. Losing overtime to the Vikings, your defense is just playing prevent. And then against the Lions, we saw what happened last week, just the complete malfunction at the end of the game where your coach didn't take a timeout, your offense wasn't urgent enough, whoever you want to blame there. A game that at minimum should have had a field goal attempt to go to overtime against the best team in football. Like, they're right there. But it doesn't matter if you're close. You have to start winning these games, which is why the head coach is so critical, especially in this division, with teams that are coached extremely well. Cowherd's final thoughts were this. If you're truthful and honest, at the end of the year, you'll look up and say, look up and go, we have our quarterback. I agree. I already feel that way. Even if it's up and down the rest of the way, I'm like, yeah, I've seen enough that if this team has the right coach, if they check a few more boxes with their roster building, like Caleb's going to be really, really good. He's better than Trubisky ever was. He's better than Fields was, certainly as a rookie and as a passer, than he ever was. Like, this guy's different. Are you going to fail him again? Are you going to fail this guy like you failed the other ones? I'll tell you this, right now I'm filming this on December 5th. If they fail him here, he will succeed elsewhere. Like, this isn't a Trubisky situation where he's just going to be a backup forever. Like, he will be good for another franchise if the Bears fuck this up. So don't fuck it up. It's pretty simple. Hopefully I say it's simple. The Bears have a history of messing these things up, but hopefully this time is different. And it's why I've advocated, and Cowherd did too, trading for a Shanahan, trading for a McVay if it's on the table. Not saying it is, not saying it's likely to be, but if it is, that is a route you should consider because that reduces the risk of picking the wrong coach. Do the Bears have a franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams? Type 1 for yes, type 2 for no. You guys know where I stand. I think most of you guys are with me, and even some of you guys who weren't earlier in the year have come around. 1 for yes, 2 for no. He's the guy. It's about the coach. That's it. I've said it. I'm going to continue to say it. It's absolutely critical that you hire the right guy. I don't care if you have to trade for him. I don't care who it is, whether it's Thomas Brown, whether it's Ben Johnson. I don't care if it's a defensive guy. Whoever it is, it's got to be the right guy. You can't afford to miss here, so that's on Ryan Poles. That's on Kevin Warren. Clock's ticking. They got to figure it out. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. More to come. Bears, Niners on Sunday. See what Thomas Brown can show in his first game as the interim head coach. My name is Harrison Graham. We will see you guys then.